Nerevar, come and make yourself comfortable, for this sermon will have a slightly different taste than the others. We have covered all spooky creatures, and recently Pelinal spoke about his love for Goblin Ken, the pervert. Now it's about orcs, but not as spooky creatures, but an actual race. Don't misunderstand, Nerevar, I don't really like orcs, and they by no means honor the sixth house in the tribe unmourned, making them lesser Enwas not worthy of our attention, but I appreciate knowledge and despise ignorance more than I dislike them. Education and transparency are my policies, Nerevar. Plus, Dunmer and Orcimer do have a few things in common that may function as potential bridges for better relations. Let us start with the basics. Orcs, also called Orcimer or pariah folk by followers of Trinimac and in ancient times, and Ornim in their native tongue, are the elves of the Hrothgarian Mountains, Dragontail Mountains, Valenwood, Skyrim, and Orsinium, literally translated as Orktown. They are noted for their unshakable courage in war and their unflinching endurance of hardships. Orcs are originally Mer, but are usually considered to also be beast folk or goblinken. I understand the latter, but why the former? What beast do they even resemble? Anyway, in the past, orcs were widely feared and hated by the other nations and races of Tamriel and were seen as nothing more than uncivilized beasts, savage barbarians, and well, some still are. The orcs, however, are as civilized as any of the other races, having worked hard to be seen as actual people. They have slowly won acceptance in the mongrel dog empire, in particular for their distinguished service in the Emperor's legions. Many orcs in the Third Era have actually received an imperial education as a benefit of serving the Imperial Legion. Orc armorers are prized for their craftsmanship, and orc warriors in heavy armor are among the finest frontline troops in the Empire, and are fearsome when using their berserker rage. As for their origins, the Orcish race was created when their patron god Trinimac was transformed by Boethia, in much the same way Chimer were transformed into Dunmer by Azura. He became Malakath, and his faithful became the Cursed Folk, or Orcimer, and were henceforth known as Orcs. The Orcs say that Trinimac was enraged by Veloth and his cult trespassing on Tamriel during their exodus, and challenged his patron Boethia to a duel. Just as Trinimac was about to succeed, a second prince, Mephala, interfered and stabbed Trinimac in the back. Boethia used the opportunity to curse Trinimac, transforming both him and his followers, as well as casting him into a place of choking air and ash. There, Trinimac was reborn in his blood and rage and became Malakath, the god of curses. The Dunmeri account of events begins much the same, but Boethia instead triumphs over Trinimac alone and devours him whole. He proceeds to take Trinimac's form and speak with his voice, and together with Mephala showed the Chimer the rules of the Sigic endeavor. Once he finished, he relieved himself of Trinimac there on the spot. That excrement became Malakath, and his followers became the Orcs. As for their history, there is much, but at the same time there isn't. It was a dull grind, to be honest, and their endurance is something to commend. During the First Era, until they founded Orsinium, they spent their time protecting whatever land they tried to settle in, failing miserably most of the time due to their underwhelming numbers and organization. But even after, they struggled against sackings and sieges. In the Second Era, they struggled to be accepted as part of the mongrel dog empire during the Akaviri potentate reign, which did not last very long and were soon back to being sacked and besieged, mostly by Bretons. Ironically, they later became part of their regional alliance, the Daggerfall Covenant. In the Third Era, this orc named Gortwog Gro Nagorm gathered enough military strength to force old Uriel Septim VII to recognize them as a kingdom like the other lesser kingdoms of the Iliac Bay. And although retconned by that senile lizard Akatosh, during the warp in the west, they even became owners of the Numidium to conquer nearby kingdoms. See Nerevar? Even orcs get to use the Numidium, but letting the betrayed Sixth House have their own is a big no for all these Enwas. One day, Nerevar, one day. Back on topic. Lastly, in the current era, Orsinium was sacked again as scheduled, but this time around the mongrel dogs sided with the orcs and received their refugees. The orc city was rebuilt on another location. Their people were fully integrated into Cyrodiilic society, and they were able to rule as a vassal of the empire, as, for example, the Gro Batul dynasty of the Bloodfall Kingdom. A happy ending, all things considered. They used to be split into wood, iron, and Malak orcs. They used to heavily rely on their martial traditions to go about their daily lives and even have their own cuisine based mostly on Echetara products. Of course, they also have their own architectural style, sometimes minimalist, sometimes pragmatic, but mostly tribal or primitive looking, full of spikes and bones and horns, which is to be expected considering the materials they are limited to, much like how you can't expect fine masonry from Ashlanders, with the exception of some strongholds and buildings like the Elysium Mages Guild Hall. Here's a tidbit for you, Nerevar. Did you know that while more inclined towards martial arts, orcs actually do make good mages? There aren't many, but they have their own field of study using blood and bones, reaching something similar to blood magic, but not quite, and they developed it all on their own in their living and historical conditions. Orcs were able to make this in a cave, with meat scraps. This is something I can respect. Never abandon your magic. Their mainstream religion, which is one of their most characteristic aspects, is all about Malakath, and they are very spiritual. They have shamans, witch doctors, and wise women as spiritual guides, and practice shamanism. Very tribal and primitive, again as expected. Yet they also have some variety among their more religious people, splitting in orders and cults. The Agra Krun dedicate themselves to protect the word of Malakath. Malakath's brutal creed were some fanatics in the First Era who simply wanted to murder Bretons and Redguards. Vosh Rock are some Trinimac fanatics who want to bring orcs back to their Aldmeri roots. And the Wrathful Flame are in charge of lighting some pyre in the ruins of the First Orsinium. Religion light, if you ask me. They could very well worship me as their god, a real god, and honor the Sixth House and the tribe unmourned rather than depend on the mongrel dogs. Now, knowing all of this, if you still want to feel the orc life in the flesh, I can suggest some mods to enhance your Skyrim experience. Orcs are crafters by nature, so it doesn't make much sense for their buildings and items to be dilapidated or generally in bad shape. Spice of life. Orc strongholds improve all their textures by giving them their own texture set, improving their aesthetics without compromising their structures. No more discrepancy by finding farmhouse or ancient Nordic ruins elements in orc architecture. Even if you hate orcs, this will at least help you not break the immersion. Plus, it is a lightweight mod, so it won't affect your performance. Orcish armors and weapons retexture modifies the Orcish armor, shield, weapons, Volendrung, Creation Club items, and includes optional retextures for LOTD's Forge Master's Fingers and Oblivion Artifacts Helm of Ferocity. Also includes a patch for Cathedral Armory, based on Amidian-born's textures, if you feel like improving everything at once. Ugly and strong, like those who forged it. Something that surely must have bothered you at least once in your life is how orcs go around with their mouths not properly closed. Closed mouths for orcs, as its name implies, fixes this issue by force, smacking their lips together. It is a whole new experience, I tell you. It even feels weird at the beginning, but you will get used to it in no time. And it is compatible with mods that change their dental features as well. Now onto the more spicy stuff, we have JJerem's Stronghold mods, which transform Largashabur, Narzulbur, Dushnik Yal, and Morkazgur into really nice-looking orc fortresses. No more a copy-pasted template making all orc strongholds in Skyrim look exactly the same. These 4 completely unique mods completely overhaul the strongholds, making them so interesting you'll want to spend time touring them to appreciate their craftsmanship, something that can be further enhanced by using some recommended textures mods mentioned on each of them. The last time you saw something of this scale and detail was during the Second Era, when stuff was properly built quite literally everywhere in Tamriel. And of course we can't have a mod list and not mention a player home. I have already mentioned Dol Khazun in a previous sermon, as you may remember, Nerevar. But the thing is, these modders are perpetually creating and improving their mods, and Dol Khazun is one of them. Dol Khazun, Mountain Stronghold Reborn, the mod's remastered edition. A fully overhauled interior, mine and hold merged into one cavern and remade from scratch. More details in the exterior, improved NPC paving, Chieftain's room updated, improved lighting overall. A new lore book for additional exposition. Lightweight install compared to old version. All basic crafting facilities and plenty of safe storage. These new features now make Dol Khazun nothing short of a perfect home, be it for orcs or orc enthusiasts, or even just Enwas who simply want more places to sightsee or fill the land. I could use some of these modders to rebuild the 6th house grounds, or maybe I'll have some minions learn about modding. As you can see, Nerevar, orcs are both primitive and brutish Enwas, but they have demonstrated they can be civilized and adaptable, making them potential interesting allies, and that would be the end of this sermon. As always, remember to honor the 6th house and the tribe unmourned by raising your thumbs, subscribing to my sermons, and inscribing your thoughts in the parchment below. I thank my Patreons for contributing to my sermons, and special thanks to my adoring fans, Connor Runda and Tonya Davis.